Hello, and welcome back to Curiosity and Co., the podcast where we dig deep into the strange, the surprising, and the profoundly human sides of life. I'm your host, and today we are tackling a paradox that's probably bothered you at some point in your life. Picture this: it is January 6th, 1995. A man named MacArthur Wheeler walks into two banks in Pittsburgh in broad daylight and robs them both. No mask, no disguise, just his face, plain as a day, captured on security cameras. Now, you would think someone planning a bank robbery might try to hide their identity, right? But Wheeler had a plan. He had rubbed lemon juice all over his face. Why? Because he believed that lemon juice, the stuff you use to make invisible ink, would make his face invisible to cameras. No, really. He was genuinely shocked when police showed up at his door that evening. When they played the surveillance footage, he stared at the screen in disbelief and muttered, "But I wore the juice." Now, this story is hilarious, tragic, and kind of relatable, if we are honest. Because MacArthur Wheeler represents something we have all experienced. Not robbing banks, hopefully, but that strange phenomena where someone is so confident in something they are so wrong about. And here's the kicker: it wasn't just Wheeler. This incident actually inspired two psychologists, David Dunning and Dunning-Kruger, to study why people who know the least often feel the most certain. Their findings? The famous Dunning-Kruger effect. But here's the paradox we are unpacking today. Why do the smartest, most competent people often doubt themselves, while the least competent are brimming with confidence? Why does the expert hesitate, while the novice charges forward? Why does the wise person say, "I don't know," while the fool proclaims certainty? Stick around. We are going to dive deep into history, philosophy, psychology, and everyday life to answer this. And trust me, by the end of this episode, you will never look at confidence the same way again. Now, let us start with the wisest man in ancient Athens, or at least the oracle at Delphi thought so. Socrates. You know the name? The philosopher who walked around Athens asking questions, challenging assumptions, and generally annoying people so much they eventually sentenced him to death. Fun guy. But here's what made Socrates wise. He admitted he did not know much. In fact, his most famous line is, "I know that I know nothing." When the oracle declared him the wisest man in Athens, Socrates was baffled. So he went around talking to politicians, poets, craftsmen, people who seemed wise, and found that they all thought they knew more than they did. Socrates realized his wisdom wasn't in knowing more, it was in knowing the limits of his knowledge. Fast forward a couple of thousand years to Charles Darwin. The man who gave us the theory of evolution wrote, "Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge." Darwin had seen it firsthand, people confidently dismissing his ideas without understanding them. Meanwhile, Darwin himself was famously cautious, constantly revising, doubting, checking his own work. And then there's the philosopher Bertrand Russell, who put it perfectly. The trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure, and the intelligent are full of doubt. Now, let's contrast that. History is full of confident blunders. Take the Titanic. The ship was marketed as practically unsinkable in advertisements, and many believed it was invincible. There's a famous quote: Not even God himself could sink this ship. Though historians debate who actually said it, if anyone did. It might be a folklore, but the sentiment was real. Absolute confidence in human engineering. And we all know how that turned out. Or consider the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, where CIA planners were so confident in their scheme to overthrow Castro that they ignored warnings from experts. The operation was a catastrophic failure, and President Kennedy later said, "How could I have been so stupid?" Or even the 2008 financial crisis, where brilliant people on Wall Street were certain they had found foolproof ways to eliminate risk. Spoiler? They hadn't. The pattern is clear. Wisdom comes with doubt, foolishness comes with certainty. But why? Before we get to science, let us sit with the philosophers for a moment. Because this idea that true knowledge includes knowing what you don't know isn't new, it's ancient. We already talked about Socrates, but let's go further east. In ancient China, Confucius is more often credited with saying, "Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance." Whether those exact words are his or a later interpretation, the sentiment runs deep through Confucian thought. Humility is the foundation of learning. You can't grow if you think you have already arrived. In the Upanishads, the ancient Indian texts, there's a beautiful idea that often is paraphrased as, "Those who think they know do not know. Those who know they do not know truly know." It's poetic, right? But it's also deeply practical. The person who thinks they have mastered something that stops learning. The person who stays curious, who admits gaps, keeps growing. Even the Taoist tradition embraces this. The Tao Te Ching says the wise person is like water, flexible, humble, flowing into the lowest places. They don't proclaim, they adapt. Now, why does this matter philosophically? Because self-awareness is the hallmark of wisdom. To know yourself, to really see your limitations, biases, blind spots, that's hard. It requires reflection, humility, and a willingness to be wrong. And here's the thing, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. It is like climbing a mountain. When you are at the bottom, you think you can see the whole peak, but as you climb higher, the view expands, and you realize there are entire ranges beyond what you could see before. Philosophers across time and culture understood this. Wisdom isn't certainty, it's calibrated confidence, knowing what you know and knowing what you don't. But what happens when you don't have that self awareness? What happens when you don't even know what you don't know? That's where the science comes in. Alright, let's talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. And don't worry, I'm going to make this as painless and entertaining as possible. So back to our lemon juice bank robber, MacArthur Wheeler. His story landed on the desk of David Dunning, a psychology professor at Cornell, and his grad student Justin Kruger. They were fascinated. How could someone be so wrong and so confident at the same time? They designed a study. They gave people tests on things like logic, grammar, and humor. Then they asked them to estimate how well they did. Here's what they found. People who performed poorly significantly overestimated their abilities. Those who scored in the bottom quartile thought they performed around the 60th percentile. They weren't just bad, they were unaware they were bad. Meanwhile, the top performers, they slightly underestimated themselves. They assumed others performed closer to their level than they actually did. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Incompetence hides from itself. The skills you need to be good at something are often the same skill you need to recognize you are bad at it. If you lack those skills, you can't accurately assess your own performance. Now, here's where I need to give you some nuance. You have probably seen the dramatic graph floating around the internet, the one with Mount Stupid and Valley of Despair. It shows confidence spiking early, then crashing, then gradually climbing again. That visualization, it's catchy, it is memorable, and it is not quite what Dunning and Kruger actually found. The real data shows a more modest effect. Low performers overestimate themselves, yes, but not as dramatically as the popular graph suggests. The high performers underestimate themselves, but again, more modestly. The Mount Stupid framework is a simplified teaching tool that captures the spirit of the effect but exaggerates the pattern. The real research is more subtle. That said, the core insight remains true and powerful. Lack of skill often comes packaged with lack of awareness. Let me make this concrete with some examples. Example number 1, driving. Studies consistently show that most people rate themselves as above average drivers. Statistically impossible, right? But it makes sense through the Dunning-Kruger lens. Bad drivers don't notice their mistakes. They don't have the skill to recognize when they are driving poorly. Meanwhile, experienced drivers are hyper aware of all the dangers and close calls. Example number 2, medical advice on social media. Ever notice how your friend who watched a documentary on Netflix feels confident about giving medical advice, while actual doctors are always hedging with, "It depends," and "we need more research"? The friend doesn't know enough to see the complexity. The doctor knows exactly how complicated human health is. This is also been seen in those who practice quacks online compared to what doctors have to say about particular thing. Example number 3, the workplace. That coworker who has been there 3 months and already thinks they could run company better. Classic overconfidence. Meanwhile, the 20-year veteran is still saying, "I'm not sure. Let me check with the team." They have seen enough to know what they don't know. Here's the key insight. You need competence to assess competence, including your own. If you don't understand grammar, you can't spot your own grammar mistakes. If you don't grasp logical reasoning, you can't see the holes in your arguments. If you don't know the research, you can't evaluate whether your opinion is informed. This creates a cruel paradox. The less you know, the more confident you feel. The more you know, the more you see the gaps. And that's why fools charge forward fearlessly while experts proceed with caution. Okay, so we've got the history, the philosophy, the science, but here's the big question. Why does this matter now? Because, friends, we are living in the golden age of confident ignorance. Social media. Oh, social media. Everyone's an expert on everything. Epidemiologists during COVID, constitutional scholars during elections, military strategists during conflicts, climate scientists after reading a blog post. And the algorithm? It rewards confidence. The boldest take gets the most shares. Nuance doesn't go viral. "I'm not sure" doesn't get retweets. It is complicated, gets zero engagement. So, We are drowning in people with minimum knowledge, shouting their opinions to millions. Meanwhile, the actual experts, they are hedging. They are saying it's complicated. More research is needed. There are trade offs. And people think they are weak. Why won't they just give me a straight answer? Because they know how complex things are. They have spent decades studying this. They see all the variables, the uncertainties, the exceptions. But to someone who just read a Twitter thread, the expert sounds wishy washy. The loudmouth sounds confident. And guess who people trust? Politics. This plays out every election cycle. The politicians who promise simple solutions to complex problems will fix the economy in 100 days. This one policy will solve everything. We will surely give you 2 crore jobs per year. They might genuinely believe it, or they know simple sells. The ones who admit complexity, who say this is hard and there will be trade offs, they often lose. We reward overconfidence, we punish nuance. And here's the scariest part: misinformation thrives on this. People who do not understand how scientific research works think they can do their own research by Googling for 20 minutes. People who don't understand journalism dismiss professional reporting because it doesn't confirm what they already believe. They don't know what they don't know, so they are confident they are right. They can't see their blind spots because they lack the knowledge to recognize blind spots exist. Meanwhile, the people who do know, the researchers, the journalists, the professionals, are constantly second guessing themselves because that's what competence looks like. Doubt is not weakness. Doubt is often a sign you actually understand the subject. So, what do we do? How do we navigate a world where confidence is mistaken for competence and humility is mistaken for weakness? First, we need to start valuing uncertainty. I don't know should be a respected answer, not a shameful one. Let me find out should be praised. Second, we need to check ourselves. Are you overconfident about something? Because we all are. About something. What's your blind spot? And third, we need to build cultures in our workplaces, our communities, our families, where learning is prized over knowing. Because here's the truth: the smartest people aren't the ones with all the answers, they are the ones asking the best questions. Alright, let's get practical. How do you use the Dunning-Kruger effect to become better, smarter, more self aware? Step 1: assume you have blind spots. Seriously, right now, pick a topic you feel pretty confident about. Now ask yourself, what don't I know? What am I missing? Maybe it's politics, maybe it's parenting, maybe it's your job. Wherever you feel that surge of, I've got this figured out, that's your red flag. Confidence without curiosity is a trap. Step 2: seek out people who know more than you. One of the best cures for overconfidence? Talking to an actual expert. Not to argue, but to learn. If you think you understand economics, go talk to an economist. You will quickly realize how much you were oversimplifying. If you think you can just logic out complex social issues, go talk to someone who has lived them. You will see the nuance you were missing. Surround yourself with people who make you feel like the least knowledgeable person in the room. That is how you grow. Step 3: test yourself objectively. The Dunning-Kruger effect exists partly because people estimate their performance instead of measuring it. So, get feedback, take tests, ask for reviews, track your progress with real data. If you think you are a great public speaker, record yourself and watch it back. Painful? Yes. Useful? Absolutely. If you think you're a strong writer, show your work to an editor. They'll humble you real quick. Objective feedback is the antidote to delusion. Step 4. Embrace the discomfort of learning. When you start learning something new and it feels overwhelming, when you realize, oh no, I'm way worse at this than I thought, that's good. That's not failure, that's growth. You are moving past initial overconfidence. You are on your way to real competence. But only if you keep going. Most people quit when reality hits. Do not. Push through. That discomfort is where learning happens. The feeling of I don't know anything is actually a sign you are learning enough to see the complexity. Step 5. Pair confidence with curiosity. Here's the paradox. You need confidence to try new things, to take risks, to put yourself out there. But you also need humility to learn, to adapt, to grow. The sweet spot? Confident enough to act, curious enough to learn. Say, I'm going to try this, and I'll probably make mistakes, and that's okay, because I'll learn from them. That's the mindset of people who actually get good at things. Not, I already know everything, but I know enough to start, and I'm excited to learn more. Step 6. Be kind to yourself and others. Look, we are all walking around with blind spots. We are all overconfident about something. We all have areas where we think we know more than we do. So when you catch yourself being wrong, don't spiral. Laugh. Learn. Move on. And when you see someone else confidently wrong, have compassion. They are not stupid. They just don't know what they don't know yet. We've all been there. Help them see clearly, gently, without humiliation. Because the goal is not to make people feel dumb. The goal is to make everyone a little wiser. Step 7. Cultivate intellectual humility. Now, this is a meta skill, the skill of knowing the limits of your knowledge. Ask yourself regularly, what would change my mind? What evidence would I need? Who disagrees with me and why? Read things that challenge you. Listen to people who think differently. Hold your opinions loosely. Not so loosely you believe nothing, but loosely enough that you can update when you learn something new. That is intellectual humility. And it's not weakness, it's wisdom. So, here we are. We have journeyed from ancient Athens to Cornell Psychology Labs, from Charles Darwin to MacArthur Wheeler's lemon juice, from philosophy to fake news. And what have we learned? The paradox is real. The smartest people doubt themselves because they see the complexity. The least informed are confident because they don't. Socrates knew it. Darwin knew it. Dunning and Kruger proved it, though perhaps not as dramatically as internet memes suggest. And you have probably experienced both sides of it. Here's what I want you to take away from this episode. Wisdom isn't about having all the answers. It's about knowing what you don't know. Confidence isn't bad, but unearned confidence is dangerous. To yourself, to others, to society. The smartest thing you can do? Stay curious. Keep learning. Be willing to be wrong. Because here's the beautiful secret. The more you learn, the more you realize there's to learn. And that's not depressing. That's exciting. It means there's always more to discover. Always another layer to understand. Always another question to ask. So, the next time you catch yourself feeling really, really sure about something, pause. Ask, what am I missing? What don't I know? And who could teach me more? And the next time you feel overwhelmed, like you will never understand something, keep going. That feeling, that's not ignorance. That's the beginning of wisdom. That discomfort of learning means you're doing it right. Alright, my curious friends, that's it for today's episode of the Curiosity and Co podcast. If you enjoyed this, share it with someone who needs a little humility or a little encouragement. Leave us a review. Tell us, what is your blind spot? What have you been overconfident about? What have you learnt you were wrong about? And remember, wisdom is not in being sure, it's in knowing what you don't know. Well, I'm your host. I ask you to stay curious, stay humble, and I'll see you around. Ciao. You have been listening to Curiosity and Co podcast, a space where we slow down to explore the questions that shape our inner lives and collective realities. It's a place for thinkers, readers, and wanderers of the mind, those who find wonder in the ideas and meaning in complexity. Here, we reflect on philosophy, science, psychology, and the way we live and relate to the world, growing from both the timeless wisdom and modern insights. Tune in for the ideas, stay for the insight. Because at Curiosity and Co, curiosity isn't just a trait, it's a worldview.